We're all about turning a crappy situation into something positive.
$250,000 of credit card debt.
Still remember the day when no one turned up.
Throw it in the garbage and start from scratch.
I could give myself a chance, so I started something.
I mean, I think that counts as from poop to gold.
Hi guys, welcome back to From Poop to Gold. I'm Daniel Harmon, Chief Creative Officer at Harmon Brothers and your host. And my guest today is Rebecca Parham. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Rebecca has a really cool YouTube channel that is very animation focused.
Yes.
And it's called Let Me Explain Studios.
That's correct.
And to kind of sum that up, a lot of it really has to do with kind of short little stories, many of which come from your own life, right?
Absolutely, yes.
You incorporate a lot of humor with that. And is this all, I do have to ask, is this all your own like creation? When you do these animations, is it like beginning to end all you, or do you have other people helping you out?
Well, from the beginning, absolutely, it was just me. It was actually very recently, I think of the last two videos only, where I brought on somebody to help me. And I just wanted to get into a financially responsible situation to bring on some of my friends who I know out there in the industry who are amazing at what they do. They went to school with me. They're great with traditional animation, which is the type of animation that I work in. And they could pick up my art style and get the humor and flow of what I do pretty well, because there's a difference in storytelling online and storytelling for like a major motion picture or a TV series. And the internet kind of has its own humor. It has its own pacing and memes and all that.
Yeah.
And so it's really beneficial to get someone that you know is online, who understands the way things are online and can pick up on that and implement it into your own work, because that's where your work is.
Yeah.
So that's where your audience is. So it was really great that I happened to find my friend Megan, who was in a transitional period where she had just left the company that she was working for and she was going back home to Florida. And I was like, hey, why don't you come and work for me? Why don't you do some stuff for me? So she for the last two videos, she's been doing some storyboarding for me. So, but before all of that, it was just me.
Oh yeah. Which is a lot of them. Like, how many videos do you have up now?
I have 61 videos. And so,
wow.
Yeah.
And these, like, to paint a picture for our audience, I mean, we're talking 5-minute long, hand-drawn.
Anywhere from like 4 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they do get longer.
Yeah, they do.
But 2D hand-drawn animation. We're not talking 3D or anything like that.
No.
Which is very cool. Kind of geeks me out a little bit. For some of our audience will remember, and maybe not, but I was actually applying for the animation program at the school I went to at BYU. I didn't end up getting in. It was a very, it was a very competitive school to get in. And you really needed to be really good at drawing, like drawing all the time in a sketchbook. That wasn't necessarily me. I like to do it, but it's evolved since then. But essentially, you've got an animation background from school, like you mentioned, right, in storytelling.
Yes.
You said Florida, right?
Florida, yeah. Ringling College of Art and Design, computer animation major. And they required a portfolio as well. Like you had to have some basic understanding of drawing and the principles of art and everything like that. Although before I got there, I hadn't animated anything. The first time I animated was actually in that school. So thank goodness they didn't require that.
Yeah.
And all an already existing demo reel of animation. But it was a crash course, and I call it the boot camp of animation, because it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, especially because I was not the best drawer anyway. And I was far from the best person in any of my classes. There were like mega stars in my class.
Yeah.
And, you had to kind of learn to not be intimidated by those people. You had to learn to take inspiration from them,
Right.
So
it's hard to have that mentality when you're there in that moment.
Exactly, yeah. But I did find my niche. I found my niche in storytelling, and that would translate to storyboarding in the major studios. And so I knew how to market myself when I did leave school. I recognize that I'm not the best generalist in the world. I can't light and model and texture and animate brilliantly like some of my friends could, but I had a foot in the door somewhere with my skills in storytelling.
Yeah.
But it didn't end up going that route. I never actually went and applied to the major studios.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how was the journey to where kind of finding your artistic groove and your voice where you are now on your YouTube channel? Walk us through that, because you were going through school and stuff. How did you all of a sudden be like, you know what, I'm just going to throw some videos up on YouTube? Step us through that process.
Well, so I actually made my first YouTube channel in 2006. So way back in the day.
Yeah.
So I had a taste
early days.
Absolutely. Like, I had a taste of YouTube in late high school, early college. And I would, post these animated music videos where you just edited together like some clips of your favorite animated shows to whatever music or sound you had. And that, I got a lot of traction on those old videos. Like, I think I got 200,000 views on one of them. And people, my family, my friends, they were so impressed by that. They didn't necessarily like the video itself, but they loved the fact that I was putting something out there and I was getting attention.
Yep.
So that was kind of like that first spark of, hey, maybe I could do this. But then no one was getting paid to be on YouTube and be a YouTuber.
The partner program didn't even exist.
Exactly. So of course you've got to take the realistic route and go and try and get a job in animation because that's realistic, right?
Right.
But no, because I had to find the best school, try to get into the best school so I could have the slightest chance of getting out there and actually being a Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks artist. And so
this is posting even prior to your official animation education.
Exactly, yeah. Before I even really came to terms with the fact that I could do animation, I was originally going to go out and do theater. So I went and studied theater at a local university for a year and decided this is not for me. This is not going to work. And finally, someone in my family suggested, why not animation? Because you're already doodling, you're already drawing, and you love cartoons. Like, you're obsessed with cartoons, Becca.
Right.
And so my mom looked online, found Ringling, and I thought it was going to be the hardest thing in the world to get in. Like, that was going to be the hardest thing I ever did. That was not nearly as hard as actually staying in Ringling and actually like surviving Ringling, because that was easily the hardest thing that I've ever done, was just making it through that program. But you do leave a much stronger artist out of that. But anyways, back on the YouTube question. I think it was the summer before my senior year of school, where I was supposed to be zeroing in on my senior thesis. And I kind of had put YouTube to the wayside because I was too busy with this amazingly intense college program. And so I came back to YouTube that summer and realized that it was going through this renaissance. Like, people were making a living doing that. They were going to VidCon, and all of these amazing opportunities were opening up for YouTubers. And I saw that and I said, I want to do that. I mean, like, this creative freedom, this being your own boss and making the content that you want to make, and you own all of it and you're the one who gets pushed to the front. And it's just like, it was something that has never, felt like it had never been done before. And to an artist, creative freedom is the holy grail of what you want. I think every artist on this planet would just love to just upload something online, anything they wanted online, and make money off of it, Yeah. And I mean, being a YouTuber, that's not entirely true. You do have to think of, what your audience wants to see, but it's still, I make the decisions of what video I want to do next, how I want to tell my story, and, the moral of the story that I want to add, and just, it's amazing creative freedom to be on YouTube. So I saw that my senior year of school, and I thought to myself, I really want to do this, but I had been brainwashed to believe that I was prestigious. I was going to Ringling College of Art and Design. I was supposed to go and apply to the major studios and be this big Pixar artist and all that kind of stuff. And everybody around me, I thought they would probably think YouTube, it was a step back. It was trashy, It was beneath me and my skills. And I did not see it that way. Not at all. Like, I was
saw it as an opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I was so excited about the opportunities that it was presenting. But I knew my school would not approve, my teachers would not approve, my friends would not approve.
Yeah.
And some of them didn't. Like, in the very, very beginning, when I would, ask them, say, what if we did this? They'd say, that's crazy, Becca.
Yeah.
You're crazy for wanting to do that.
Sure.
So
yeah, your story isn't unique in this regard when it comes to artists, how they viewed YouTube.
But it's almost funny because, as artists, they were told by their parents and their friends, you'll never make a living as an artist. Like, you're crazy for going to animation
and
school.
here they're turning around and being like...
they're turning around and telling me that YouTube is a crazy idea.
Yeah, the irony's thick.
Yeah, pretty thick. But it was seeing that renaissance where I felt like this is something that I could absolutely do. And I even kind of gave it a trial run. I did this, we had a senior thesis show at the end of our senior year where we had to show off all of our theses, and all our family and friends were invited. It was in this big auditorium. And the tradition every year was to make these sketch parody things based around movies that had been released that year and that were popular. So, you know, we had like Wreck-It Ralph had been released that year, so we had like a lot of Wreck-It Ralph themed things, but also Les Mis had been released that year, the movie version of Les Miserables
with Hugh Jackman.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And so me being the singer of my school, I did this parody video of, you know, these miserable Ringling students to all of the music to Les Mis. And it felt so much like a YouTube video. It felt like a sketch comedy YouTube video that was really popular back in that time. And when it played in this big theater of my friends and their families, it killed it. I mean, like, people were like roaring with laughter, and I got like a huge giant ovation at the very end of it. And that was an even bigger push of, I could do this.
Yeah.
I could make these things, and I could actually make it. And it didn't even have to be animated, but I understood the humor. So there was always that dream. So when I went back to home to kind of like rework my portfolio, and again, this was the pipe dream. So I was still thinking I needed to apply to the major studios.
Yeah.
So I went back home to work on my portfolio, strengthen it some. And my mom and dad are entrepreneurs, you know?
Yeah.
So they have their own companies and everything like that. And mom and dad, it's just, I was raised seeing them be the bosses.
Yeah.
And they had these pie in the sky, blue sky, ideas of where their children could go and what they could do.
Yep.
So they came up to me and said, Becca, you don't need to work for the man. You could be the man. And so within a blink of an eye, my dad had signed me up for my own LLC. We'd come up with a name, and suddenly I was a businesswoman when I had no idea what I was doing.
Just the best way to start.
Exactly.
Just with no idea.
Exactly,
just
no idea.
Kick you off and go for it.
It's like, go for it, Becca. Here's your LLC.
Yeah.
So I was terrified back then, but, you know, it was a step closer to that whole YouTube dream. Like, it wasn't exactly, you know, a company to make YouTube videos. It was a company to do freelance stuff. So I had like clients coming up to me doing some, you know, educational stuff for kids, a lot of advertising. And then in the meantime, in between client work, I would work on my videos and I'd post them to YouTube.
Your little passion projects.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. That's an awesome story. So this podcast is called From Poop to Gold. Mm-hmm. You might have already captured this in your story, so forgive me if you did, but very much we want to capture a time in your life or career where you kind of went from the lowest of the lows and overcame with a high, like when you've taken that poop and turned it into gold. What comes to mind for you in that regard?
Oh gosh, it's such a dramatic story. The thing about the Parham children is that they've always had to stumble first before they've skyrocketed to success. So, you know, every single one of us had it. And mine was that I failed my computer animation class in school. And the way Ringling's curriculum worked was that if you failed one of your major classes, you were kicked out of the major entirely. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I was...
So on one, basically your whole major hinges on that one.
Essentially. Like, I was taking, you know, a handful of major classes and then some other core classes. And I was doing great in all my other classes except for this one where we were just learning the software Maya.
Oh,
and
I'm familiar.
And I was not handling it well. I could not like figure it out to save my life. And I was also grieving the loss of my grandmother, who I was incredibly close with. Yeah. And so it all was just this storm of not being able to correctly function and being in this program that was just super hard. I failed, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I had to wait half a year to get back into the major and repeat that semester of my sophomore year. And in the meantime, I went and I got my minor in business of art and design, and we called them the BOAD kids because business of art and design, and they were super supportive. Like, it was just this group of girls who were just like completely supportive of each other and believed that anything could be accomplished. And they were all just this big, great group of friends that they brought me in and they thought, Becca, you are going to like do wonderful things.
That's awesome.
So they picked me up, they dusted me off, and I felt very, very empowered to get back into the major. And I excelled after that, you know? But that's not even the biggest poop to gold instance, because immediately after I graduated from Ringling, something called the post-Ringling depression hit me pretty hard. And
sounds like it's something that occurs with more people than just you.
Oh, well, it's funny almost, because I will talk to my friends who graduated the same class as me or graduated the year before, and they will have seen my Draw My Life video where I officially name it the post-Ringling depression, and they're like, Becca, yes, that's exactly it. We didn't have a name for it, but we all went through it.
They all felt it.
Yeah,
Wow.
because it's just this crash that you feel, because Ringling would build you up and say, you're going to do these amazing things. You're going to work for these giant studios and you're going to work harder than you're working here. And so you graduate, and especially at that point, there was like a dry spell for jobs. And so you get out, and it's so hard to even just get an internship at one of these places. And so many people felt like they weren't living up to the expectations that Ringling had put upon them.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, me going back home and starting my own business where I wasn't even able to pay the bills yet. I was still, depending on mommy and daddy.
Sure.
Like, I absolutely felt like the biggest failure in the world. I didn't want to be on Facebook anymore. I didn't want to contact my friends because I felt so embarrassed of where I was. I mean, I even had that one friend who I told him, yeah, I'm doing my own business and I want to be on YouTube. And he just flat out called me crazy.
Yeah.
And that, at that moment, it crushed me.
Yeah. You bet.
Because he was one of those people that I absolutely admired, and he was going to go off and do great big things.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah. And so it felt like the lowest of the low. And I felt like at any moment I would just lose my mind. I would snap. And then my father died. And
I'm sorry. Wow.
you would think that would have been the thing. That would have been the thing to push me over the edge and really just make me lose my mind, just slip into depression. But in a way, it wasn't. In fact, it almost worked in the exact opposite way, because suddenly I could just let the floodgate of emotion go. Yeah. I could be as sad as I wanted to be. I could tell people I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And people would tell me, Becca, don't even think about all that. Just grieve.
Yeah.
Don't think about your career. Don't think about anything. Just grieve and do your best. And it was like this idea that I could just step back and let everybody know I'm not okay. I'm not all right. And that's what saved me. It was like pulling this pressure release valve in my head. And that's essentially what got me out of the post-Ringling depression, which is crazy. If you really think about it, it's insane to me that something so horrible could actually save someone from depression. But it was in losing my father that I realized that when you live through something that you were so terrified of, like I one of my biggest fears at that time was losing my parent. And when you live through that phobia and you come out okay, you realize the world is not as scary anymore. And you think, why not?
Yeah.
Why not do this? Why not go and reach for my dreams? Because you gain a new perspective on what actually matters. So I didn't care what my school thought anymore. I didn't care what my hoity-toity industry friends thought anymore. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And so that was a huge push. And that actually just made me stronger. It made me more solidified in what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And then finally, YouTube took off. And here we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Please tell me you have made a video of this.
I think my Draw My Life is pretty much exactly this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing that. That's very inspiring. So if I can, creative process. What does a typical end-to-end video look like for you, and kind of a Cliff Notes version of that?
So it's basically, it starts with an idea. I write it down in my phone, on my computer, on a piece of notebook paper, anywhere. And it just kind of starts to form how I would tell it to like a friend or a family member over dinner.
Just like we're talking now or something.
Yeah. Thing. And the jokes just kind of write themselves,
Yeah.
So then the next point is writing the script. and you get a pretty decent idea of what you want to do. You get some good jokes in there. And then you go into the sound booth and you record, and a lot of the really funny stuff happens in the sound booth because you improv. In the moment you improv things. Like I've had some my best moments come out of improv, or just in the moment feeling I need to start laughing maniacally here.
Yeah,
and it really brings the video full circle when you have that element of spontaneity. And so I'll record all of that, and then I'll put it into my editing program, and I'll get it to where the audio is locked down.
Yeah.
So I have an idea of how long the video is going to be, how long, what can go, what needs to stay. But so once that's locked down, I chop it up into pieces, and then I just start storyboarding and keyframing and animating. And yeah. And these days it's great. So for some
people that don't know, storyboarding, basically creating an image of what's going to happen in a particular scene, right?
A very rough, loose image, because typically you want to keep it rough and loose because they can be thrown out and changed easily. So there's that. But in order to really save on time, I typically will storyboard and keyframe at the same time. And keyframe basically means deciding what the most important poses in the animation are to correctly convey the emotion, the action, the intent to the audience.
Right.
And it can be 2 frames, it can be 2 drawings, it can be 3, just whatever is necessary to get your point across.
Yep.
So, and they're the most important poses because they're what you base all the rest of the drawings on.
Yeah.
So
if I'm going to take a drink of water, you're going to have a frame of me grabbing the cup, another frame of it up at my mouth drinking, and then putting it down or something like that.
That was perfect. Good job.
Yeah.
And the in-betweens are what happens in between those poses.
Yeah.
And in-betweens can be everything. It can change the acting, it can change the pacing, but most importantly are the keyframes. And with the way animation on YouTube works is you don't have too many in-betweens. You kind of try to push a pose for as long as you possibly can. And that's actually a very old thing that, directors like Chuck Jones used to do. Like Chuck Jones was the inventor of holding a pose for as long as you possibly can and getting the most out of it, so long as that pose was expressive and emotional and got exactly the right point across. And he was, a brilliant person when it came to expressions.
Yeah.
So I take a lot of inspiration from Chuck Jones.
Chuck Jones being the guy, the animator for Looney Tunes.
Director,
okay.
Yes.
That's what I was remembering is that he did Looney Tunes, but yes.
Yeah. And I'm a student of the old masters. Absolutely. Because I feel like there's something so charming and so nice about those older works. And they had teams and everything, but they were still working with a shoestring budget and making the best out of it, especially the Looney Tunes guys. But I think there's something so timeless and evergreen about the old stuff that just kind of rings true even to this day.
Yep.
And that's what you want on YouTube when it comes to animation. You want something that's evergreen.
Yeah.
Because we in animation, we can't be trendy. We can't be meme-y. We can't in the moment make a video that is supposed to be viewed right here, right now, and nobody ever wants to come back to it.
Right.
We can't do that. So we have to be evergreen. We have to make something that will last forever and that people will want to come back to it.
Yeah. Anything cool you have coming up that you'd like to tell our audience about?
I mean, I'm doing my last and final VidCon recap because one of the traditions on my channel is I did do an animated VidCon recap of, my trip to VidCon.
Okay.
And they, I think this one is like the grand finale one. It's my first time being featured here in the United States, and I think it's just a good note to end it on. So this is going to be like a big old grand finale show for VidCon, but mostly I just say I've got some secret projects up in the works, and if they come to pass, I hope they come into fruition, but just a lot of stuff I can't talk about right now, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Stuff maybe even beyond Let Me Explain, or all still living on Let Me Explain Studios?
Oh, pretty much on Let Me Explain Studios.
Well, so guys, that's where you want to check out Rebecca. She has awesome work. Her animation's a lot of fun. Great storyteller, incorporating comedy, really relatable and endearing stories from your life that are in there. And like you said, some fun music things and stuff that you've got going on. But let Me Explain Studios on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for
really
having me.
Really appreciate it.
It was amazing.
We've got a gift here for you from our clients. So some fun stuff in there.
Some words that I can't say because it's not brand friendly.
No, it's totally fine.
great.
And then here's a copy of our book, From Poop to Gold, which covers the three pillars of Harmon Brothers of creative culture, creative processes, and creative partnerships.
That's incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring stuff. Love your story. Love that you've just gone out and done it and made it work, even in spite of everybody just being like, that's not the way to go for an animator,
Right.
But if you want to be an entrepreneur at the same time as an animator, you can do it. You've proven that.
Absolutely can.
Yeah.
You can do anything you really set your mind to.
That's right. Okay. Thanks again, guys, for listening and for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.